And yeah, here we go. All right. So now that I'm sharing my screen, we can begin. All right. So let's start off with the first slide. So what you want to do is you want to understand your needs versus your wants. So when it comes to budgeting your money, you really want to make sure that you're spending the majority of it on stuff that is considered a necessity. So for example, food, it's very well known that it's a lot cheaper to cook and make your meals at home. So you should be spending your money on groceries and limiting eating out. Of course, it's okay to, treat yourself from time to time, but you definitely want to make sure that you're spending money on the things that you really need the most. And you all can go through this list. But, for transportation, taking public transportation is a lot cheaper than having a car, even though it might not seem so on like a day-to-day basis. You do have to pay for gas. You do have to pay for car insurance, maintenance if something goes wrong. And, public transportation is good for the environment too. So take advantage of that. And then clothes, stick with the classics. Your phone bill. A lot of people have phone bills that are kind of encompass like a lot of things that they don't even use. So definitely try to find something that, encompasses the things that you still want in a cell phone plan, but that's a lot cheaper and you don't necessarily have to pay for things that you don't even use on your phone. All right, so moving on to budget. So you want to keep track of your budget for the month. So if you keep track for a month, you would be very surprised on how much that you're spending. And then you can set concrete, reasonable amounts for different expenses at the beginning of the month. And then you can make your savings fit into your budget, and even small amounts can have a big impact. And at the end of the webinar, I'll actually show you a spreadsheet that we have on the Hub that will automatically format everything for you. You just have to set the amounts for your own budget, and then it automatically deducts whatever that you put into it. So super cool, and I'll show you at the end. Okay, so now we're going to go into checkings and savings accounts. So let's start with checkings accounts. And a checking account is where you keep the money that you earn and you spend. So your checking account is usually your primary bank account. And these are some of the things that you can do with a checking account. So you can use it to pay your bills. You can deposit your paychecks. If you have a job, some companies or organizations might even offer direct deposit. So what that means is it's paperless and you just get your paychecks or you just get your money directly deposited into your account on certain days. And then you can get your financial aid EFT deposits from that. So if you don't know what EFT is, it stands for electronic funds transfer. So basically, if you're ever expecting a check from your school, you can have that directly deposited into your checking account. And then you can also link it in your Venmo or PayPal account. And I'm sure a lot of you already know what Venmo is, but if you don't, it's basically an app on your phone. And I think there's also a website where you can pay your friends for things, or your friends or your family for stuff. So let's say I decide to have lunch with my friend one day and she decides to front the bill, then I can just pay her back through Venmo. So it's a free app, totally free. And so I highly suggest that you get it, especially for a college student, because people are always paying for different things. So yes, and same thing with PayPal. All right, so as the name suggests, checking accounts have checks. So checks are not as popular as they used to be, but I do know some people who still use checks. My sophomore year of college, my landlord only accepted our rent via check. So if you write a check to someone, then that money will come out of your checking account. And if you don't know how to write a check, excuse me, there's also an article on the Hub that outlines how to do that. Okay, And then I'm sure you all know this, but you can get cash from your checking account at an ATM. And checking accounts also have debit cards. So debit cards are basically a modern version of checks, and then you can use your debit card at an ATM to pull out cash. And then your debit card also comes with a PIN number that's 4 digits, and it's basically like a password for your debit card. So whenever you use it at an ATM or you use it to buy something at a store, they'll ask you for your debit card as well as your PIN number. And all right, moving on to overdrafts. So overdrafts are a really terrible thing, and you definitely don't ever want to overdraft. So what it is it's what happens when you spend all of your money in your account and then some. So you basically have negative money, and some banks charge for overdraft fees. And you want to keep track of your spending so you don't overdraft. And overdrafting usually happens when you have some sort of like automated payment. So let's say you have like a Netflix or a Spotify account, and that's like a monthly charge, right? So if you don't have enough money in your bank account, your bank will cover you for that, but then you're going to be in the negative. And then along with that, with you already being in the negative, your overdraft fee is going to put you even more in the negative. So you definitely want to avoid overdrafting. Okay, and then lastly is that you can get a free student checking account. So if you're a college student, you should definitely check out your options for when it comes to checking accounts. I think high school students can also get free checking accounts, and I'm still definitely reaping the benefits from that because I graduated from college last year, but with my bank, it's up to 5 years. So I graduated within 4 years, and I'm still within that year after post-grad. So I still got a free checking account, even though I'm not a student anymore, but definitely take advantage of the free accounts that they offer for students. Okay, so now we're going to move into the other type of bank account that you can have, which is your savings account. So a savings account is where you keep the money that you are saving, as the name suggests. And it's usually linked to your checking account, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And the reason for that is because, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but you can get, if you're being paid on a consistent basis, like if you have a job, then you can have part of your paycheck automatically taken out and have that put into your savings account. So it's super convenient. Okay, so the earlier you open your savings account, the more money that you will have in the future. And I'll show you a cool little infographic that will explain this a little bit more. Okay, so start small. So if you save $25 a month, that can go a long way. So right now it's March, and let's say that you're trying to save to go on some trip during the summer. Let's say in like July. So you have like 3 more months until July, or 4 more months. So, if you spend or save $25 a month, that's $100 at the end. And you can use that for, whatever, gas, food, whatever things that you have that you need to spend money on. All right. And then you can also sign up for automatic savings. So what you see will make a big, or what you don't see will make a big difference. So this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. If you're getting paid on a consistent basis, then you can sign up for automatic savings. So you can have a portion of your paycheck taken out every single time you get paid and have that go into your savings account. So instead of like your whole paycheck going to your checkings, you can have like 3/4 of that put into your checkings and then 1/4 of that put into your savings. All right, cool. So now I'm going to explain to you why you should save now. All right, so this graph shows how much money these 3 different people have at age 65. So basically when you have a savings account, it comes with an interest rate. So an interest rate is basically a fixed percentage that matches like however much money that you have into your account at the time. So let's see, the person who started saving at 25, he was putting in $300 out of, I don't know if it was like monthly or every paycheck, but he was contributing $300 pretty consistently into his savings account. And because of his interest rate, he was able to make about $460,000 by the time that he was 65, in comparison to people who had the same saving or had the same interest rate. So the person who started at 35, he also was saving $300 at a time, but he was making a little around $250,000 at age 65. And then the person who started at 40, so this is where it kind of gets interesting. So instead of saving $300 at a time, they were saving $600. So that's what that double savings means. And even at age 65, even though they were doubling the amount that the other two people have, it still only made about $350,000. So $100,000 less than the person who started when they were 25. So, even if you're not like in your 20s, let's say you're in college and you're like 18 or 19, I would definitely suggest saving as much as you can now, because it will make a huge difference in the future. Okay, so now on to saving money. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to choose a bank. So when you choose a bank, there's a lot of factors that can go into it, and the convenience is a really big factor. So available ATMs, the location, hours, and then also you want to look at what types of fees and charges that they have. So you want to look for low or no service charges, competitive interest rates, and then you want to see if they have any overdraft fees. And then you also want to understand your bank account. So are you looking for a checkings or a savings account? And if they charge fees for those things. So like I said, if you're a student, then you can most likely get a free checking account. And then, once you graduate, you're going to have a certain balance in your bank account in order for it to be free. So take that into account. I bank with a big bank, but one of my good friends, she banks with a credit union, and she has a really, really great interest rate on her savings account, but that comes with the inconvenience of not having like many branches around her, because she lives in a big city now and she's from a small city. So, there's different pros and cons to each, but those are just some things that you should factor in when you're choosing a bank. All right, so step number 2 is opening a savings account. So you can open a savings account young, and you can start small and build up. So $20 a month can go a long way, as we saw. And then you can consider automatic savings, which I talked about earlier, and then shop around. So find a bank that fits your needs, and don't be afraid to ask questions. So definitely talk to your parents to see what advice that they have. Talk to your friends who have savings accounts, your friends that are older than you, and they will definitely be able to provide you with a helpful perspective. All right, so now is how much you should save. So we've been talking a lot about how much our savings in general, but now we're going to move on to how much you should save. So you should save at least 20% of your earnings, and you want to create a budget that minimizes your spending. Like we said, only use your money for necessities and things that are valuable / important / worthy. And then let's say at the end of this month, if you have some money left over in your budget, you can stick that into your savings. And so that'll be more than 20%. Okay, so now, what if saving doesn't sound fun? So you're choosing to do something better in the future with your money. So you're saying no to Starbucks, but saying yes to something bigger that you want more, like a vacation or less money stress. And I think this is really important for college students, because it's so easy to get swayed into spending money. Like if you're on campus and your friend is also in between classes, just like you, they might say, hey, do you want to grab lunch? And so instead of you being prepared and like having a lunch with you or going home to make lunch, you're going to end up spending money, and when you didn't even intend on doing so. And I know that's such a common thing in college. So even though it can kind of be a downer to say no to certain opportunities, just know that you are saying yes to something bigger that you really, really want. And then when that thing comes around, you will be happy that you saved. Okay, so now we're going to talk about saving for short-term goals versus long-term goals. So some examples of short-term goals are saving for a concert or prom tickets, a new coat or a pair of shoes, a spring break trip with your friends, and textbooks and tuition for next semester. And then long-term goals would be buying a car, paying off your loans once you graduate, moving out of your parents' house, and then even becoming a homeowner one day. Okay, so now we're going to talk about emergency funds. So an emergency fund is one of your first long-term savings goals, and everyone should have an emergency fund. And it should have enough money to cover all of your expenses, rent, bills, and spending for at least 3 months. And you need this in case you lose your job, have a medical or family emergency, or something else unexpected happens. So of course, we don't want to, or we want to acknowledge that these things happen, but we don't really like to, talk about them. But I kind of liken it to having like an earthquake emergency kit or like a fire emergency kit. A lot of people don't have them, but you definitely should. And, for people who don't have them, and if they do happen, then, they're kind of screwed. So you definitely don't want to be in that situation financially, especially because, our society revolves around money. So you definitely want to have enough to cover the unexpected. Okay, so how to set financial goals. So decide on how much money you want to save by a certain time for a certain expense, and then you can break that goal into smaller amounts to see how much you need to save each week, month, or year, and then look at your budget and figure out what expenses to cut so that you can save up for your goal. So for a move on, I'm going to launch the attention check to make sure that you are all paying attention. Just take a couple of seconds, and then we'll go back to the presentation. Cool. All right, cool. Thanks, everyone. All right, so let's go back to the presentation. All right, so here's a good example of that. So this presentation is a little outdated, so let's pretend June is in 3 months. But you want to go to prom, so you need to buy a ticket, and then your new dress or suit, you need to buy those things by June, and it's going to be about $160. So 160 divided by 4 months, 3 months, June's in 3 months, you're going to be saving about $53 a month, if my math is correct. So you want to look in your budget for ways to see how you can spend that much less per month. And like we mentioned earlier, it's really easy, especially if you notice that you're spending a lot of money on certain things, like Starbucks, for example. If you get coffee every single morning before class, that's something that you can easily eliminate, or eliminating eating out for a couple of weeks, stuff like that. Okay. And I actually think that is the end of the presentation. So before we leave, I actually want to show you the Hub spreadsheet that we have. So if you go on the Hub and you click on resources, let's see. Okay, and you search budget tracker. I know we're running low on time, but I will try to be as quick as possible. All right, you click this, and then you get this nifty thing. So this is a really, really nice spreadsheet that you can use to keep track of your budget, and it has all of the categories that you could think of. So, you know, groceries, snacks for your dorm, eating out, your phone bill, toiletries, clothing, going out, and entertainment. So basically in this top row, or in row 5, you just put how much you want to spend on each of those things, and then during the month, you fill out all of these cells, and then these boxes at the end, as you can see, they automatically will deduct from how much you put into the top row. So this is really, really nice, very, very convenient for you to learn how much, you know, look at your spending habits and see what you can cut out and how you can save more money. So just make sure that when you do this, just file, make a copy, and then that's it. So that is the monthly budget tracker that we have on the Hub. And I think with that, I'm going to launch the post poll, see how much you all have learned. And if any of you have any questions, feel free to chat them. I know that was a lot of information in not a lot of time, so feel free to ask if you have any questions. All right, perfect. All right, so last chance to ask questions. Anyone? Hi, do you have a question?
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering if there was like a way, like online, because I want to like save up my money in for like different things, like different short-term and long-term goals. But then
Mm-hmm.
if there was any way I could like do that like online, because I don't want to take my money out and like put it into like savings jars, you know. But then I don't know if there's any way I could really do that without just putting it all into my savings and like keeping track of it that way.
Yeah, so that's a really, really great question. Unfortunately, I don't know of any like website where you can do that. I do know there's an app called Mint, and it's basically like a budget tracker. So it allows you, it's kind of like similar to the spreadsheet, but it's an app, so it's really convenient. But basically, you can like put how much you want to put towards like certain things. So there's that option, and then I also know like some of my friends, they use like an envelope system. So basically, they just take their cash out, and then they put certain amounts of money into different envelopes. And so like they're all labeled different things like food, rent, all sorts of stuff. So that's another option that you have. But if anyone else has any sort of suggestions, feel free to pass them on, because I personally don't know of any websites like that. But that's a really great question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I know we're over our time. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you on the Hub. Bye.